We're living in such a challenging times. I can't believe in my lifetime I'm going to witness the pandemic. I'm going to witness so many wars. Tectonic plates of the society is moving left, right, and center. And most importantly, our life become different. I used to believe in a time when the information was absorbed by just a one channel on TV. Yes, we had a one channel TV. Like today, I was a news only, predominantly. That was in communism. Then we have the newspapers. But today we're living in a times where the information it's on a reach every possible moment on our life. And I do remember in academy, subject where we studied information as a part of war operations prior, during, and after combat operations. And I clearly remember we used it to study portions from a guy was called Ion Mihai Pacepa, a former high-ranking Romanian intelligence officer who defected, of course, to the West in 1978 and exposed Soviet disinformation tactics. He wrote a book called Disinformation, in which reveals the extent of Cold War era propaganda and the manipulation of global perceptions, offering invaluable insights into the modern disinformation campaigns. The fight how to subside misinformation and disinformation has just begun. And why I'm saying this to you, the other day I accidentally caught a conversation amongst children and they specifically discussed a topic you were gonna laugh. Is the earth flat? Even though I appreciate their arguments, their discussion led me to consider possibility of conspiracy theories. And you remember as a kid, you discuss something with your friends in, St. Pete, on the way to home. Next day you come to school, some of the A grade students will dob you and teacher will say like, no, earth is not flat, earth is round. And you take that source of information as a valid. However, the kids creating their own conspiracy theories. That is misinformation. We have been vulnerable since our childhood. And as I mentioned at the beginning, the internet and social networks contribute significantly to their rapid dissemination. It's not like disinformation originated in our time. It is not. I always talk to people. Disinformation, misinformation, you can track to the Potemkin villages. I mentioned this so many times. Potemkin villages. I'll let you to ask the holy grail of the knowledge, Dr. Google. Potemkin villages. In today's post-truth era, disinformation seems to be the dominant strategy. And you can see so many politicians and so many experts talk about this is misinformation, this is disinformation. In reality, what's really changed over the past few decades? What? Today's conversation sometimes presents disinformation and arguments about fake news as a novel occurrences. Disinformation efforts nowadays, however, combine tried and true techniques with the fresh opportunities provided by the internet. Correct, by the internet. Before we continue, I'd like to say a few words. I'd like to welcome all of you risk takers and truth seekers to This Podcast Live, the battlefield, where we expose fake gurus through human intelligence methods. My name is Bekes and I hold the Guinness World Record for the longest live audio broadcast in duration of 55 hours and 25 minutes. As well, I spent 1,800 consecutive combat days, and my professional career included working me in military and diplomatic intelligence security services. And on top of this, I'm the best-selling author and have passion for podcasting. However, in today's episode, we will discuss what disinformation is, how it's applied in daily life, and what dangers disinformation represents for you, me, and society in whole. So let's dive in disinformation. For you to understand disinformation, we need to talk about propaganda. Not any propaganda, but black and white propaganda. People sometimes refer to disinformation as a black propaganda because it conceals the source of message. Now, on the other hand, the term white propaganda typically refers to the public relations and advertising. Disinformation is purposely deceptive and so furthers an agenda, in contrast to misinformation, which frequently stems from inadvertent mistakes or ignorance. Sometimes active foreign policy uses disinformation to influence public opinion abroad for better or worse. Now, what's the goal of disinformation? Well, the goal is to undermine valid ideas, truths, and positive connotations in society. Disinformation can affect more than just politicians. It affects institutions, organizations, and even nations. The goal is frequently to cast doubt on the authority of important organizations or individuals, especially in majority-based democracies. But what is rule? Divide and rule. It's a goal of disinformation. It's to influence public opinion. Upsetting this will foster political apathy. Literally apathy. Disinformation is an active political tool that seeks to divide and rule, not conquer, rule, by breaking social cohesions and causing society to break apart into small, isolated fractions. When you have a small fractions, what you can do? Control them easier. But we need to go back in the past. So we need to touch something what's called the Cold War. And disinformation during the Cold War, it was on a peak. On a peak in practice. Today, it's ruthlessly applied. Today's conversations often present disinformation arguments about fake news and the post-factual era as novel occurrences. Nonetheless, the operations of the Soviet Secret Service KGB during the Cold War provide the intellectual foundation for many of the disinformation phenomena that may be investigated today. The examination of the target audiences, concerns, fears, social conflict lines, and dominant discourses is the first step in the KGB so-called disinformation cycle. Before we dig deeper into KGB and disinformation, what the Soviets realized very early that there is a much more effective, much more cheaper methods to cause uncertainty with their so-called enemies, and that is to apply disinformation. Disinformation is the greatest tool and asset for any government if they know how to apply. KGB mastered this. Disinformation consciously seeks to widen societal gaps that already exist. The second step involved identifying targets vulnerable to these conflict lines and narratives that can fuel them. Next step is people create misinformation content such as rumors or fake papers to support a specific viewpoint. This content is secretly released, whether by unwitting agents or by purchasing or bribing media outlets in the other nation. Guys, today you don't need to just go on CNN, on any other news and bribe somebody to put some information out. You can create your own one. However, to affect more effectively the population, the country, it's a country sponsor, it's a state-sponsored activity. So you must understand, country A will apply this information in country B. So this is a state-sponsored because they have information, have intelligence, they have the methods. They will utilize their own channels, they build own channels, but however, they will go into the country B media. Why? To cover more. These individuals mindlessly disseminate lies that have been passed down to them, much like leaks. When the media or maybe unquestioning journalist serves as an advocate for the misleading information and becomes entrenched in national discourse, the disinformation cycle comes to an end. What has beginning has the end. When media outlets regarded as reliable disseminated incorrect information, the message gains credibility and reaches a wide target audience. Something to bring from my past. When I was working in the intelligence field, we had something that's called source reliability and information credibility. So you need to grade source and information. Who said, who wrote it, what is wrote it. We don't have those things anymore. We have the now fact checkers, we have some other things on our media which they say that's correct or incorrect. But sometimes most information has been deliberately and purposely planted to look like a real information, and reality they are the part of disinformation cycle, which brings us to confirmation bias. As an active measure, disinformation deftly takes advantage of social and psychological flaws, such as our tendency to accept something as true if we hear it from others frequently. Disinformation is especially likely to reach those with strong ideological inclinations or those who think they are immune to it. They are less inclined to challenge you or somebody else if you present them with the conspiracy theories that support their worldview. And that's called confirmation basis. Have you ever heard for the expression called rotten herring? You did not? Let me share with you that method. One method, it's called rotten herring. Anonymous rumors about a person circulate on the internet and in tabloid media. It's a rumor. These rumors usually involves abuse, corruption scandals, or affairs. These stories aim to create a negative impression in the target's mind. Sensation-driven tabloid media, in particular, without key source checking mechanisms such as double verification material, are susceptible to this. But why? Scandals. Scandals drive traffic or clicks. Whether or not information is true is irrelevant. Therefore, we oversimplify by equating misinformation with erroneous information. The highest caliber of disinformation frequently starts with real premises that are compounded or taken out of context to produce ominous conclusions. Conspiracy theories are methodically disseminating this type of well-researched deception. We may propose many divergent, sometimes contradictory theories to explain a difficult subject. You ever heard that expression, if you give somebody a simple explanation, they are most unlikely they will not believe you. But if you go into such a depth of explaining over and over in such a great length and depth, people have a tendency to believe you. That is very, very interesting. Ultimately, this leaves the intent audience unsure of what is genuinely true and what is entirely fictitious. So, it's about diverting attention from the truth. This fire hose of falsehood approach symbolically muddies the discursive waters, making it impossible for anyone to see through it. Back to KGB. The KGB operated under the presumption that misinformation could be easily uncovered or would likely not be effective in the short run. Disinformation typically does not persuade strongly disagreeing people. Instead, it reinforces prejudice in those who hold its core beliefs. You see how fun that it is? Individuals who already harbor a deep cynicism towards the media, political or scientific systems perceive them as a bought or viewed as corrupt. Yeah, viewed as a corrupt. Correctly. Additionally, persons with limited media literacy and those who only consume a small number of homogeneous media outlets and do not receive a diversified image of the news landscape are more susceptible to the effects of disinformation. So how the disinformation fits in the era of information? Let me explain this to you. Contemporary disinformation efforts leverage pre-existing techniques and augmented them with the novel opportunities presented by who and what? Internet. It's on the reach. This refers to the ease which blogs and social networks enable global information sharing as well as the disinformation-resistant economic models of internet platforms. Displaying material that people like is the foundation of Facebook, Twitter, Amazon, Google, and other business strategies. The objective is to maintain people's focus on the platform in order to present them with additional product advertising, which is how these businesses generate revenue. And that's normal. We see this every day. However, research demonstrates that sensational content conspiracy theories, and scandal entice users to remain on these platforms for extended periods, thereby boosting revenue from the clickbait advertising. There's something that's called the micro-targeting, or the practice of advertisers showing people tailored ads based on their interest and psychological profile is another issue. Therefore, it is possible to automate and customize misinformation. In other hand, disinformation can spread millions of times through blogs, Twitter, Facebook, just name it, to reach global audience. Now, automated bots or paid commenters, troll armies can attempt to influence online conversations. That leads us to the non-state actors, like right-wing organizations are increasingly using disinformation. Increasingly, particularly right-wing organizations. Because of technical issues, it is frequently difficult to establish authorship of information. It's useless. What? It's useless to try and stop the rain. These developments are supported by the media shifting behavior. The old-fashioned media no longer serves as a gatekeeper to sort pertinent information from irrelevant information. Because of the internet's free culture, users are no longer accustomed to paying for premium content. The economy's pressure results in quality reductions, and that's what we're seeing almost every day. There is a trend towards even faster news cycles, which also indicates a decline in quality control. You remember I told you, check the source, check the information? Even after repairs, very few users identify problems. This tendency has long-term implications, including the likelihood that people will accept false information from a reputable source rather than untrustworthy one. Long-term dissatisfaction with the media landscapes leads readers to actively seek alternative media, which in turn leads them to divisive blogs or foreign propaganda sources without them knowing. Readers of the newspapers that report on politics more fairly, for example, tend to have a more positive opinion of politics than to those who mostly get the news from aggregated social media news feed. Like you, me, everybody. Algorithm suggests what to read. Now, this information can only address pre-existing human deficiencies and limitations. Thus, it's critical to address these core issues over time. We should approach short-term, quick fixes that use artificial intelligence, AI systems, or upload filters to counteract misinformation. With, of course, caution. AI is terrible at picking up on gray areas such as humor, misquoted statements, and suggestive misinformation. Sarcasm, I don't even touch. As I said before, it's useless to try and stop the rain. Instead, you and we all need to make sure that it doesn't further destroy our home's foundation, family foundation. Only by adapting the political, media, and education structures to demands of the information era can we achieve this in the long run. Trust you enjoyed this episode about misinformation. This is something what I was being educated in communism, in democracy, and today I'm saying, feel free to subscribe, share, like, and comment. Let me know what do you think about media and disinformation. Thank you for watching.